Hello, welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Ben, and this is another edition of Fresh Red Kills. Fresh Red Kills is where I talk about books that I've recently finished reading. As I said in my last Fresh Red Kills video, recent is not that recent this time. I am talking about books that I read last month in May. Just finally getting around to it, but I wanted to make sure that I put my thoughts down on the video. If you're new to my channel, I don't consider these videos to be book reviews. I consider them to be discussions. I'm basically just sharing my thoughts. This is just a way for me to sort of, just get out the process of my thinking after I've read something. So I'm a little bit late with it, but what the heck, we'll give it a shot. I read Life in a Medieval Castle by Joseph and Francis Gies. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And Lost Christianities, The Battles for Scriptures, We Never Knew by Bart Ehrman. So I guess I'll start with this one here. This ended up being a nice, swift, very enjoyable read. This was published in 1970. Let me see, when was this? Well, this was 1974. I don't know if it was actually published before then originally, but this is actually a pretty old copy too. But actually nice, not bad condition, I would say. Now, of course, I had seen these books around for many, many years. I remember seeing them like in teachers' rooms when I was a kid. This is a part of, I guess you could say, a series. You also had Life in a Medieval City, Life in a Medieval Village, which, based on this, I think I would also pick up. These are really nice introductions, I think, especially to beginners, for some medieval social history. That's really what this is. This isn't really a militaristic book. This is more about what it was like to live within a castle, or the social structure in which a castle existed. And there are plenty of images. Of course, they are older. These guys are spitting at falcons, trying to train them. Some of the pictures are kind of dark, but if you've kept up with my Historathon videos, which that's what I read this for, I'll talk about Historathon in a moment, I have seen worse images put in a book. You couldn't even tell what you were looking at, but there's a lot of images in here, and they focus on a particular castle. This one here, which I think is in Wales. And they basically go through, and the chapters are all pretty quick, actually. Here's the contents. You can always screenshot that if you need to. It's the castle, comes to England, the lord of the castle is a house, the lady, the household, a day in the castle, hunting as a way of life, the villagers, the making of a night, castles at war, the castle year, the decline of the castle. It's a little over 200 pages, but this was, again, a very nice, swift read. And it does use primary sources. One of these sources that is used a lot is, I think it was Matthew Paris, a monk. He is quoted very extensively throughout this. But it was fun. Like I said, not a lot to say. I mean, it's a very effortless, light read. If you are very new to medieval, social history, not a bad place to start. It won't take you that long to read. There's plenty of images. And I have heard, I don't know if this is true, I have heard that the newer editions, the images actually are not as good as the old editions. I don't know. I can't vouch for that, but that's something I've heard, just something that maybe you should be aware of, because I know that they do actually still sell these today, just, of course, newer printing. But yeah, I read this for Historathon. Historathon is a year-long reading event where myself, some great co-hosts, and many others who I just love seeing their videos, love seeing what they're reading, we throughout the year read nonfiction history. We discuss it, we celebrate it, we promote it, and we divide the year up into 4 quarters, each 3 months long, and each quarter looking at a different time period. Quarter 1 was January, February, March, and that looked from prehistory up to the year 500 CE. And now we are in quarter 2, which we have less than 2 weeks left for. So that is, again, April, May, June, where we look at the years 500 to 1500. So this was one of my medieval reads. And I'm going to have, I think, at least one more Historathon book read before the end of the quarter. And then we go on to quarter 3, which is coming up, which is really the summer. So it's July, August, and September, and that looks at the years 1500 to 1820. 1820 might sound like a weird year to cut it off at, but it's really kind of booktube reasons. It allows people who take part in Jane Austen July to also piggyback on Historathon. It also allows people to do Victober to piggyback on Historathon. And really, 1820 is kind of when the Victorian era starts, and it's not a bad actual year to set things off, even if it's not quite as round of a number as 1500. But yeah, if you've read this or any of the other in the series, I'd like to hear what you think about it. I think people, could be wrong, people tend to speak very highly of Life in a Medieval City. So maybe that's one that I'll be on the lookout for to read after this. Not immediately, but at some point in the future. And excuse me. I also read, this was part of a group read that I did with Debs over at, who's over at Rainer Reads, one of my co-hosts for Historathon, and a subscriber, Stephanie. And last year, I also read with Stephanie, and we did another Bart Ehrman book. I think it was Heaven and Hell. So we decided for maybe Midrash again this year, let's read this. Maybe Midrash is a yearly booktube event, fairly quiet event at this point, not that widespread, but people like me still like to do it. And it is basically an excuse to read books that deal seriously with religion. So I do like reading about religion. I'm not a religious person at all myself, or at least not any kind of religion that require faith. I am an atheist, but I am fascinated by religion. And I came from a Catholic tradition, so I'm interested in the origins and roots of Christianity and how we got to where we are. So that's probably my motivation for reading this. I didn't realize before we read it that this is one of Bart Ehrman's like earliest, or maybe the earliest popular history that he wrote. This came out in, 2003. And really, he's looking at all the different versions of Christianity that we see within the first few centuries, and then eventually kind of trying to figure out maybe why, what he calls proto-orthodoxy, the Christianity that won out, why it won out. I'm not sure we get satisfactory answers in here, but along the way, we are also looking at things like forgeries, both ancient and modern, things that kind of muddy the waters of, scholars trying to determine exactly what happened back then. Now, Ehrman has kind of been known since this book. It didn't begin with this book. Later on, he would write books that were a little more openly critical of the way majority of Christians viewed the Bible. He is somebody who has been very open, again, after this book was written about his own deconversion. He was a literalist Christian, and he ended up losing his faith, especially as he learned more and more. And a lot of his books are about the unreliability of the Bible, although he is still a sound scholar, so it's not like pseudo-historian like that. And if you're interested in that sort of thing, like how the Bible developed, I would recommend his books. They're very easy reads. Excuse me, and so is this one. Now, we had a discussion, our group, afterwards, and we all kind of agreed that the first part of the book is quite engaging, a lot of really fun stuff. In the middle, you start getting more about the proto-orthodoxy, and it felt like we were kind of getting bogged down in the story a little bit. It was a lot of detail. Now, he's very careful to lay things out in a kind of simple, systematic way so that the reader doesn't get lost. But sometimes it can feel like it's almost going too slow. You kind of want him to hurry it up a little bit, which I understand why he's not, but just for me personally, I felt like that middle part dragged a little bit. Then it picks up again. There were some real gems in here. He does talk about, things like the Marcionites and the Ebionites. He talks about Gnosticism. I love some of these things about the forgeries. This is a really fun chapter. This is chapter 4. It's called The Forgery of an Ancient Discovery, Morton Smith and the Secret Gospel of Mark. I guess that there was a gospel found, we don't know if it was actually found, by this guy Morton Smith, and they can't tell if it's a forgery or not, if the guy made it up, because it's so good and he was such a good scholar that maybe he's fooled everybody. So it's really interesting how he did this in the 20th century. We can't tell if a 20th century find is a forgery or not. How can we tell, this is what I ask myself, what a 1,000+ year manuscript is whether or not it's forged, because of course we don't have any of the original manuscripts of the Bible. But he goes into some of the other alternative gospels, some of the very strange stories that were being told about Jesus, and some others. He goes through how Pontius Pilate is at first a villain, and then as the Romans become converted, the story keeps changing and changing until Pilate is basically a hero and he gains sainthood. Some of it feels like ancient fan fiction that people take way too seriously. And I know I'm being very glib, but as I said before, I am an atheist. This is not something that I believe in, but I am fascinated by. I do think that this history is very interesting, it's very fascinating. I think looking at why and how people believe is definitely of interest to me. But I can't say that I don't sort of roll my eyes sometimes when I see some of the orthodoxy seep through, or the sorts of things that people argued about back then and today regarding religious belief. So I would recommend this. If you've read other Ehrman books, I feel like this one is just a little bit more like denser than some of the others. Like I said, it got bogged down a little bit in the middle, and that's just, again, I don't call these things reviews, these are just my thoughts, but I still am very glad that I read it. So again, this is for maybe Midrash. This was for Historathon 2024. If you've read either of these or you have some thoughts on them that you'd like to share, love to hear them. Keep it civil. As always, thank you, BookTube.